In 1985, in a remote part of Africa that is now South Sudan, lay a small, peaceful village called Laun Ariak. Here, mornings began with the gentle lowing of cattle. Children ran barefoot on the warm dirt paths, and life was simple, quiet, and exactly as it was meant to be. Inside a modest dirt floor schoolhouse sat an 11-year-old boy named Salva Dut, a quiet, bright boy from the Dinka tribe. He was just sitting at his wooden desk, waiting for the final bell to ring so he could go home. But that bell never came. Instead, a terrifying sound shattered the silence. A sharp, merciless gunshot echoed through the air. The teacher looked out the window, his face pale with absolute terror. "Run!" he screamed. "Into the bush. Do not go home." A bloody civil war had reached their doorstep. The northern government and southern rebels were clashing, and innocent children were caught directly in the crossfire. Salva ran. He didn't look back. He ran away from the only home he had ever known, blindly plunging into the thick, thorny bushes of the African savanna. That day, Salva lost everything. He didn't know it yet, but he wouldn't see his mother, his father, or his siblings for years. He was entirely alone. Night fell, and exhaustion finally overtook his fear. He found a group of fleeing strangers and slept in an old abandoned barn. But when Salva opened his eyes the next morning, the barn was completely empty. The group had left him behind, a child abandoned in a war zone. The tall savanna grass around him was a double-edged sword. It hid him from soldiers, but it was also the hunting ground for lions and hyenas. Just as despair began to set in, he spotted a familiar face in a passing group of refugees. It was his uncle, Julier, a strong, battle-hardened former soldier. Julier placed a heavy, reassuring hand on Salva's shoulder. "You are with me now," he said. Those 5 words became Salva's lifeline. Together, they joined thousands of others marching toward Ethiopia. But to get to safety, they had to cross hell itself, the Akobo Desert. The Akobo Desert is brutal. Temperatures soar to 50 degrees Celsius. The ground is literally hot enough to burn bare flesh. Salva's shoes had long since worn away. With every step, his feet met scorching rock and sand. The pain was blinding. One afternoon, he stubbed his toe, tearing the nail entirely off. He collapsed into the sand, sobbing, unable to take another step. But Uncle Julier looked back at him. He pointed to a withered plant in the distance. "Do you see those bushes?" Julier asked. "Just walk as far as those bushes, just one step at a time." That simple advice became Salva's survival code for the rest of his life. Do not look at the whole terrifying journey. Just take the next step. The desert tested their bodies, but the nights tested their souls. Salva had made a friend on the journey, a cheerful boy named Marial. But one morning, Marial was gone. He had wandered just a few steps away in the dark. Only his torn clothes were left behind. The lions had claimed him in total silence. Salva wept without making a sound. But the cruelty of this journey was far from over. Newer rebels intercepted their group. They robbed them of their meager supplies, and then they pointed a gun at Uncle Julier. A shot rang out. The man who was Salva's entire world crumbled to the dust. Salva was frozen. No screams, no tears, just a hollow, deafening silence. But the group kept walking. If you stopped, you died. Salva remembered his uncle's words. He looked at the ground, placed 1 foot forward, and walked. Months later, they reached the Atang refugee camp in Ethiopia. He spent 6 years in that camp. The 11-year-old boy hardened into a 17-year-old survivor. But in 1991, the peace shattered. The Ethiopian government violently shut down the camp. Soldiers chased the refugees out, firing guns, forcing them toward the deadly Gilo River. The Gilo River was swollen with monsoon rains. The current was lethal, but worse than the water were the monsters hiding beneath it, massive Nile crocodiles. Gunfire erupted from behind. The refugees had no choice. Thousands jumped into the roaring water. 3,000 people died in that river, pulled under by the current, torn apart by crocodiles, or shot by soldiers. Salva swam with everything he had. The water was freezing, but his uncle's voice echoed in his mind. Just a little further. He survived. Standing on the other side, drenched and shivering, 18-year-old Salva became an unexpected leader. He guided 1,500 other lost boys through the wilderness toward Kenya. It was an agonizing year-and-a-half journey. Through sickness and starvation, Salva organized them. He put the weakest in front, so no one was left behind. Against impossible odds, 1,000 boys reached the Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya alive, because of Salva. Kakuma was like a prison without walls, but Salva refused to let his mind decay. He studied, he learned English, and his dedication paid off. In 1996, his name was placed on a list that changed his life forever. He was chosen to go to America. He boarded a plane and watched the deserts that burned his feet fade away into the clouds. He landed in Rochester, New York. The transition was brutal. The trauma of war had rewired his brain. The sound of traffic felt like gunfire. Closed doors felt like traps. But he pushed through his PTSD. He went to college, studied business, and adapted to his new world. Yet, a void remained. Where was his family? Then, in 2003, a miracle. A phone call from a UN clinic in Sudan. His father, Salva Dut, was alive. When Salva heard his father's voice call him son after 18 years, the dam broke. 18 years of buried pain poured out in tears. His father was alive, but he was dying. Decades of drinking contaminated groundwater, filled with guinea worm parasites, had destroyed his digestive system. Salva knew he had to do something, not just for his father, but for millions suffering the same fate. He founded the organization Water for South Sudan. He traveled across America, telling his story. People listened and they donated. By 2005, a heavy drill rig rolled into his father's village. The drill pierced deep into the earth, past the contaminated layers, reaching the pure, natural aquifer below. When cold, crystal clear water erupted from the ground, the village erupted in joy. Salva stood there with his frail father, both weeping with happiness. That single well changed everything. Girls no longer had to walk for hours to find dirty water. They could go to school. A community was reborn. But Salva's journey had one final, powerful chapter. In 2008, he brought his drilling team to a new village to build a well for a little girl named Nia. Nia belonged to the Nuer tribe, the exact same tribe whose rebels had murdered Salva's uncle decades ago. When she asked him why a Dinka man was building a well for the Nuer, Salva simply smiled. He knew that the need for clean water and the need for peace knew no tribal lines. In that moment, a decades-long cycle of hatred was washed away by the purest resource on earth. The boy who ran into the bush with nothing but fear in his heart had returned with life in his hands. Salva Dut proved that suffering does not have to break us. If we choose to keep moving, just one step at a time, our pain can become our greatest power.